lived in pods like you saw up above, they transitioned down here when this section of the base was finished in 2144. Space is extremely limited, so you'll notice some overflow here, but more residences also exist on lower levels, which are inaccessible to tours. I'll stop at each of our destinations if you want to look around, or if you have any questions for me.
That's way more awesome wherever you come from than it is here.
Have any questions so far? I'm not sure the exact count. What you see is what you get. Some, particularly security. The original Titan Astrobase had more As the colony grew, the base was expanded underground. Sadly, it's difficult to get additional construction done so for now, additional populations are housed in these stacks of old It's not glamorous, but... Oh sure, I'll be here waiting. The locals loved it.
All these tourists are able to come and go as they please. I wish I had. Oh, you... Besides, I'm not really good at talking to tourists. I feel like it sometimes. I don't have many friends, and Anyway, if we're going to talk... Well, I'm trying to finish up my undergrad schooling, actually. But I also do some odd jobs here. Sometimes I help Jay out at his shop, and he gives... It's not as bad as you'd think. I like talking to off-worlders. Because, honestly, I'm not sure I want to stay here. The crates are what we call the living quarters for the poor people. They're comfortable enough, I guess. Okay, well, no. Not the studies, but I'm poor. I just don't have the... I keep having to take odd jobs just to put food on my plate. Really? I thought it was the only way. But maybe you're right. I guess I can put... Maybe part of the reason I feel I've been stuck in a rut is because I pushed my...
The right advice at the right time can potentially be more... Back to it then.
Have any questions? Alrighty, we'll be taking the resident. Let's leave these good people alone for now and go check out the farms. Follow me up the elevator.
Damn power's on the fritz again. Joyce always seems to need help clearing ice off the equipment.
We used to get more tourists than we do these days.
Off-worlders always ask how I can live here. I wonder how they can live anywhere else.
Sure would be nice to get off-world sometime.
You get used to the methane processing smell after a while.
New homesteads farms are the beating heart of the colony. Without them, the original outpost would have shriveled and died. These pods are sealed and climate controlled, the perfect environment for growing the hydroponic vegetation needed for survival in the early days of the colony.
I could really go for some onions cooking over at the Brown Horse.
Any questions about the farm? Good question. It's largely the same, because this was the colony that pioneered the techniques you see. But you'll notice that the farms here are smaller and things here are a little more old-fashioned compared to some of them. These days, it's a mix of what you find elsewhere in the galaxy. It was a lot of hardy root vegetables like potatoes, carrots, beets, and such, supplemented with corn, peas, green beans. Oh, they are indeed. Colonists still cultivate plant-based food for their own consumption here in New Homestead. It's less vital to their survival these days, as they also import supplemental food from other colonies, including... However, most citizens here take... By all means, go right ahead. Feel free to talk to the... Come back and...
It'd be nice to get away for a while, but it's difficult. Ah, someone new. Are you a tourist? Oh, you should probably... You'd be lucky to own a private room, let alone a whole hab unit of... I'm fascinated by the other worlds in the settled systems. Do you mind if I ask you... Oh, wonderful. What's New Atlantis like? Oh my, that sounds incredible. We hear about it, of course, but we rarely get much. I wonder if I can convince Nathaniel to go on a trip. Do you mind if I ask you another? Thanks. I promise not to take too... Is the Freestar Collective as lawless as a... Really? That sounds nice, but what happened? Do people really just take the law into their... Gosh, I'm sorry, you don't need to answer all of... Is it okay if I change the subject? Oh, thank you. Are there really planets full of plants? I've read about them. I've only ever known Titan, and it's all... I've always dreamed of visiting one to... Can I ask you something else? Thanks. I promise not to take... Is space travel as exciting as it's... I've heard stories about pirates. I've always wanted to try going into... Maybe people here are right. The dangers here... Those are all the questions I have at the moment. Thank you so much.
Did you know? I always wonder what it's like where other people come. Let me know if you have any other questions.
We Titans are hardy people. You'd have to be to live in a place like this.
That tour guide showed one of the kids a picture of some
If you need medical
silly
attention,
drawing he
see
saw in
Dr.
Sedona.
Lakota. But a
I
word
feel
of
like it's
warning,
popping up everywhere.
she really doesn't care for tourists.
Any questions about the farms?
You're always talking about how...
Onward it is! We'll be... But for now, so, The old biolabs are just on the other side of this building, believe it or not. We'll step on through the hallway there. They're not in use anymore, but the colony has faithfully recreated them as a historical exhibit, true to the original purpose of the Titan Astrobase. Sadly, they're undergoing some light renovation. Otherwise, there'd be interactive activities for kids to learn about how they used to search for microbial life here. Pardon the dust, but I can still answer some... Oh, I'm sorry. I completely forgot to... When NASA divested its interest in the Astrobase and turned it over to the people back in 20... Funny you should ask! Sadly, none. See, NASA funded the Titan Astrobase project because conditions seemed... They tested many different sites, performed... Well, NASA defunded the xenobiology program in 2132, but a scientist by the name of Catherine Neely. So, by 2135, work began on what would ultimately set us up. These very labs housed the computer systems used in that research. Sure thing. Keep in mind, the Biolabs exhibit is closed for visitors.
I don't mind the tourists. They help the local economy.
Pardon the dust, but I can still answer some... You got it! On to our next... Next, we'll be heading outside, so make sure to check those seals on your suit, because it's a bit chilly out there. We're going out into the frozen wastes of Titan to see what powers this planet. Watch your step outside, by the way. The ice can be slippery if you're not careful. The goal is to keep people out of Dr. Lakota's infirmary.
And Homestead is a living history exhibit. But these are real people, so please be kind to them.
Did you see those wind turbines out there? Wow.
Technology that sustained the old Astrobase. And it might surprise you to learn that the same technology is still working today. The interesting thing about this old colony is that it's mostly powered by clean, renewable energy. You'll see one of the methods used on the horizon up ahead. That's right! New Homestead's famous wind farm! This spot was chosen for the colony in part because of its constant winds. These turbines have been integral to the colony's function since its establishment as a cheap, mostly reliable source of electricity. So, let's talk about... You're right. Most surface wind on Titan isn't too terribly strong. Like many worlds with atmosphere, the higher you... You're looking at a piece of history. Sure, wind power is... It's impressive. That was... Mostly. I'm sure you've noticed the occasion... There's some methane... Absolutely. So, You're the boss. Let's go. Moving right along, we're going to learn about Titan's great natural resources. We were talking about methane and other resources, right? Back in the 20th century on Earth, they used to fight wars over natural resources like this and petroleum. They had this whole moon here basically made of hydrocarbons in their own backyard. They just couldn't get to it. Incredible how far we've come. New Homestead is home to one of the oldest and largest methane processing plants in the settled system. Every year, UC engineers go through a painstaking, month-long maintenance process. It's how this place has remained operational as long as it has. I'm not going to take you too close to the machinery, liability and all, but I can still answer questions. Questions? Yeah, it's not as if they shut down for a month. It's not shut down at all. See, this place is built with redundant systems. During that time, the UC gets more of it. Exports mostly, since this world is so... Of course, new... Oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Take your time. That's not... Questions? Fire... Okie dokie, Artichoke. So, this next stop is a bit of an interesting one. I only recently made it part of the tour. Fun fact, it's also... What we're about to see is a glacial fire we affectionately call Ymir's Horn. This coolest is named after a character in a popular fantasy novel, but it was changed a couple hundred years ago. Derives from the Latin word for hill, and scientists only gave names to groups of hills on a planet's surface. So in reality, the term you hear more often is the plural, coles, with an E. You probably don't hear it very often where you're from, because it was usually a term reserved for unexplored planets, back when they didn't have the technology to describe what they were seeing firsthand. Because of that, the term is much more common in the Sol system, but you may still hear it occasionally in reference to uncharted worlds. This planet's full of them, though, and they like to preserve that history here. So here it is, Ymir's Horn. You're free to take... According to ancient Norse mythology, Ymir was the first Jotun, a frost giant. In the legend, they were both male and... Ymir even predated the Norse gods, who, as it turns out, killed Ymir to fashion the Earth and all of humanity from the corpse. It's a... I've heard this particular formation was caused by an... Just be careful! It can get...
What does your scanner reveal?
So here it is. Excellent. So we're gonna head back inside through the methane processing plant. Try not to touch anything on your way. We want to make sure